Just as I was about to retrieve my forgotten purse, the restaurant manager grabbed my hand, locked his office door, and whispered with a pale face. "Please be strong, ma'am. Don't scream or faint after you see the security footage." What my husband did in that video made me drop to my knees, all strength gone from my body. That evening, the atmosphere inside the five-star restaurant, located in the heart of Manhattan's exclusive Upper East Side, felt warm and pleasant. Crystal chandeliers cast a golden light that reflected beautifully on the fine china and sparkling crystal glasses. At one of the round tables, situated in a rather private corner of the dining room, sat 4 people who looked like the happiest family in the world. Crisp laughter could be heard from time to time, breaking the silence of the classical music playing softly in the background. Emily was seated next to her husband, Alex. She wore an elegant designer dress in pastel shades that made her look distinguished yet simple. Her beautiful face radiated happiness, though faint lines of exhaustion were barely visible under her eyes. Tonight was special because they were celebrating their 3rd wedding anniversary. It was also a small celebration of thanks because Emily's health had been gradually improving after she had frequently complained of severe headaches for the past month. Across from them sat Catherine, Alex's mother, and a young woman named Jessica, who had been introduced as Alex's adopted sister from childhood. Catherine smiled broadly as she looked at her daughter-in-law with a gaze that seemed full of affection. The middle-aged woman wore her best skirt suit with rather flashy gold jewelry on her wrists. Jessica, sitting next to Catherine, also appeared cheerful. From time to time, she would pour wine into Emily's glass with a very polite and helpful demeanor. Alex, the handsome and noble-looking husband, never ceased paying attention to Emily. He cut the steak on Emily's plate into small pieces to make it easier for his wife to eat. Every one of Alex's movements denoted a deep affection that would make anyone who saw it envious. Emily felt like the luckiest woman in the world. She had inherited a large corporation from her late father and now had a husband who was not only devoted but also loved her for who she was, not for her fortune. Alex gently caressed the back of Emily's hand and asked softly if the food was good. Emily nodded enthusiastically with a sweet smile. She said the food was delicious, but what made everything more enjoyable was the presence of her loved ones around her. Catherine chimed in with praise, saying that Emily was a good wife and deserved all this happiness. Jessica also added that she greatly admired the harmony of her adopted brother's home. Time passed without notice, and dinner came to an end. The waiter came to clear the table, and Alex immediately took out his debit card to pay the bill without letting Emily even reach for her wallet. Alex always insisted that as the head of the family, he should bear the cost of dinner. Although everyone knew that Alex's wealth was nothing compared to Emily's immense fortune, that responsible attitude was what made Emily love him even more. Once the payment was complete, the 4 of them walked towards the parking garage. The New York night wind was blowing quite strongly. Alex quickly took off his jacket and placed it over Emily's shoulders so his wife wouldn't get cold. Catherine and Jessica walked ahead of them, arm in arm, laughing softly as they talked about something. Upon reaching the family's black sedan, Alex opened the door for Emily as if she were a princess. The car pulled out of the restaurant's driveway. The atmosphere inside the car remained filled with laughter and jokes. However, about 15 minutes into the drive, just as they were about to get on the FDR drive, Emily was suddenly startled. Her hands fumbled around her sides and the passenger seat. Her face, which had been cheerful before, suddenly turned to panic. She realized that her designer leather purse was not in her lap. The purse contained her cell phone, wallet, and several important identification documents that she always carried with her. Emily told Alex in a worried voice that she had forgotten her purse. Alex immediately and calmly pulled the car over to the shoulder, reassured his wife, and offered to turn the car around. However, Emily glanced at the clock on the dashboard and then turned to the back seat. She saw Catherine already looking sleepy and tired. Emily felt bad about making her mother-in-law spend more time on the road just because of her carelessness. Emily finally decided to return to the restaurant alone using a ride-share app. She asked Alex to continue taking Catherine and Jessica to Catherine's home first and then either come pick her up or wait for her at their townhouse. Alex initially refused and insisted on accompanying her, but Emily convinced her husband that she would be fine. Emily argued that the restaurant was safe and she just needed a moment to pick up the purse. Finally, with reluctance, Alex agreed, ordered an Uber for Emily and waited until the car arrived to pick her up. In the car back to the restaurant, Emily reflected. She felt silly for being so careless as to leave her valuables behind, but on the other hand, she smiled to herself, remembering how attentive Alex had been. She was grateful to have a husband who honored his mother so much. Emily imagined their beautiful future. Perhaps they would soon be blessed with a child to complete the happiness of their little family. The car pulled up right in front of the restaurant's lobby. The restaurant's atmosphere was much quieter than before. Some of the lights at the front had already been turned off as closing time was approaching. Emily hurried inside. She hoped her purse was still in its original position and hadn't been moved by the cleaning staff. She walked towards the corner table where they had dined when her feet had just crossed the main doorway. A middle-aged man in an impeccable suit suddenly approached her. That man was Mr. Roberts, the restaurant manager who had greeted them upon their arrival. However, this time Mr. Roberts's expression was very different. There was no friendly smile or warm welcome. His face was tense, pale, and his eyes showed a deep seriousness. Cold sweat was visible on his temples. Mr. Roberts stood directly in front of Emily, blocking her path to the table. Before Emily could ask, Mr. Roberts politely took her arm, but his grip was quite firm, as if holding her to prevent her from running away or fainting. In a low, trembling voice, Mr. Roberts apologized for his discourtesy. However, he emphasized that there was something very urgent that Emily needed to know right now. Emily was confused and tried to pull away, asking where her purse was. Mr. Roberts didn't answer that question directly. Instead, he led Emily towards a door next to the reception desk that said, "Manager's office." Emily began to feel scared. She thought perhaps a robbery or something else bad had happened. However, Mr. Roberts's sharp gaze convinced her to comply. They entered the small office. The walls were lined with monitors displaying security camera footage from various angles of the restaurant. Mr. Roberts immediately locked the door from the inside. The sound of the key turning made Emily's heart pound. She took a weary step back. She asked with a trembling voice what all this meant and why she had been taken into a locked room. Mr. Roberts took a deep breath, trying to calm himself before speaking. He looked directly into Emily's eyes. He said he had to show her something that the security camera above Emily's table had recorded. Mr. Roberts asked Emily to pray, to be strong, and to promise not to scream or faint after seeing what would be shown on the monitor screen. Mr. Roberts stated that what Emily was about to see would change her entire view of the people she had just had dinner with. With slightly trembling hands, Mr. Roberts pressed a button on his computer keyboard. Emily stood rigidly in front of Mr. Roberts's desk. Her eyes were glued to the largest monitor in the center of the room. The video showed a high-quality recording focused on table number 12 where Emily and her family had dined about 20 minutes ago. In the corner of the screen, a timestamp showed the exact moment before they left the restaurant. Mr. Roberts explained that he was doing a routine review of the cameras when his eyes caught suspicious movements at that table. He asked Emily to pay close attention to the moment she excused herself to go to the restroom to freshen up before heading home. In the recording, Emily's chair was empty. Only Alex, Catherine, and Jessica remained at the table. At first, their interaction seemed normal, but a few seconds after Emily's back disappeared from the camera's view, Alex's demeanor changed drastically. The warm smile that always adorned his face vanished instantly, replaced by a cold, calculating expression. Alex was seen looking left and right to ensure no waiter was watching their table. Emily held her breath as she saw her husband's hand move quickly to grab her purse from the table. Emily's heart felt like it stopped beating. She watched Alex skillfully open the purse as if he knew the location of every item inside by heart. Alex took out a small white bottle. Emily recognized it. It was the bottle of vitamins and iron supplements she always carried and took routinely every night on her doctor's advice due to her frequent complaints of dizziness. On the monitor screen, Alex opened the lid of the vitamin bottle. Without a hint of hesitation, he emptied the entire contents, the real vitamin capsules, onto a paper napkin he had prepared on his lap. He then crumpled the napkin with the real vitamins and stuffed it into his jacket pocket. Once the bottle was empty, Alex reached into his pants pocket and pulled out a small plastic baggie containing other pills, their shape and color almost identical to Emily's vitamins. With a very quick and practiced motion, Alex poured the strange pills into Emily's vitamin bottle. He closed the bottle again, shook it gently to make it look normal, and put it back in Emily's purse in the exact same position as before. The whole process took less than a minute. Emily covered her mouth with her hand, suppressing the scream that wanted to escape. Tears began to well up in her eyes, but she forced herself to keep watching. The most painful part came next. Emily saw Catherine, the woman she had always considered her own mother, witness Alex's entire act. Instead of forbidding it or being shocked, Catherine covered her mouth as she stifled a laugh. Catherine's body shook with mirth. Then Catherine made a gesture that made Emily's blood boil. The old woman tilted her head, rolled her eyes back, and moved her hands randomly, mimicking the movements of a mentally disturbed or disoriented person. Catherine pointed towards Emily's empty chair while continuing to imitate the motions of a mad woman. Jessica, the sweet adopted sister, was seen leaning her face close to Alex's ear. Although no sound could be heard from the security recording, Jessica's lip movements and facial expression showed complete support. Jessica was even seen patting Alex's shoulder proudly, as if praising the success of a great plan. The three of them raised their glasses and had a discreet toast just before Emily reappeared from the direction of the restroom in the video recording. The video ended. The monitor screen went dark. Mr. Roberts's office fell into a terrifying silence. Only the soft hum of the air conditioner and Emily's ragged breathing could be heard. Emily felt her world crumble. Her legs grew weak and she nearly collapsed if not for her grip on the edge of the sturdy wooden desk in front of her. She felt dizzy, nauseous, and betrayed in the most vile way. The husband, mother-in-law, and sister-in-law she supported and loved turned out to be a pack of wolves in sheep's clothing. Mr. Roberts quickly pulled up a chair and invited Emily to sit. He then took a small bottle from his desk drawer and placed it in front of Emily. It was Emily's original vitamin bottle. Mr. Roberts explained that after Emily's family left, he immediately ordered the cleaning staff to check the trash cans in the men's restroom because he saw Alex had gone there before leaving. They found the crumpled napkin with the real vitamins that Alex had thrown away. Mr. Roberts then spoke in a serious tone. He said he had a background in pharmacy before changing careers to restaurant management. He explained that the pills Alex put in Emily's bottle were not a poison that would kill instantly, but a type of illegal drug belonging to the category of strong psychotropics. That medication has terrible side effects if consumed routinely by a healthy person. The effects include visual and auditory hallucinations, excessive anxiety, paranoia, confusion, and even a loss of touch with reality. Mr. Roberts emphasized that their goal was not to kill Emily, but to make her appear insane. The symptoms of dizziness and headaches Emily had been feeling for the last month were most likely the initial effects of small doses of that drug, perhaps mixed into her food or drink at home. Emily sat in silence, processing all this information. The pieces of strange events over the past few weeks began to fit together in her mind. She often heard whispers at night that she thought were hallucinations. She often felt like there were shadows of people in the corners of the room. She often forgot where she put things. It turned out that all of this was not due to illness, but to chemical manipulation introduced into her body by the person who slept next to her every night. Alex wanted to drive her mad. Emily realized the motive behind it all. If Emily were declared mentally incompetent, medically or legally, then the right to manage all of her company assets and her father's inheritance would fall into the hands of her closest guardian, her own husband. They wanted to get rid of Emily and enjoy her wealth without having to become murderers. The plan was so neat and evil. Suddenly, Emily's cell phone, which she had placed on the table, buzzed loudly. The name my husband appeared on the screen with a profile picture of a broadly smiling Alex. Emily stared at the phone with a lost look, torn between hatred and disgust. She didn't want to answer. She wanted to run. She wanted to scream. She wanted to report this to the police right now. However, Mr. Roberts held back Emily's hand, which was about to decline the call. He shook his head gently. He advised Emily not to be reckless. If Emily confronted them now without proper preparation, they could deny it. They could get rid of the evidence. And Emily, who was under the influence of the drugs, if she had already taken them before, would easily be accused of having an episode or being hysterical. Emily's position would be weak in the eyes of the law. Without concrete evidence besides the security recording, Mr. Roberts told Emily to answer the phone and act as normal as possible. He asked Emily to begin the best performance of her life. Emily had to pretend she knew nothing. Emily had to make them believe their plan was going smoothly. That way, Emily could gather more evidence, and turn the tables when the time was right. Emily took a deep breath, wiped her tears away abruptly, and adjusted her tone so it wouldn't sound. She pressed the green button on the phone screen, and brought it to her ear. Alex's voice came from the other end, full of a false concern that now sounded sickening to Emily's ears. Alex asked if Emily had found her purse and if she needed to be picked up. Emily replied in a voice that she made sound a little weak, but calm. She said the purse had been found, left at the reception desk. She said she was waiting for a car to go home and told Alex not to worry. Emily hung up the phone quickly before her emotions could explode. She looked at Mr. Roberts and nodded firmly. Mr. Roberts handed the bottle of real vitamins to Emily, and told her to keep it safe as comparative evidence. He also reminded Emily to take the bottle that was now in her purse, the one containing the hallucinogenic drugs, but never to actually take them. Emily took her purse, which Mr. Roberts had secured in the bottom drawer of the desk. She clutched the purse tightly, not for fear of losing her things, but as a shield. That night, Emily left Mr. Roberts's office. No longer as a naive and weak wife, she left with the fire of anger burning in her chest, but carefully hidden behind a calm face. The war had begun, and Emily swore she would not let them win. She would return to the house that now felt like a den of snakes, ready to play her part in this deadly play. The Uber carrying Emily pulled up right in front of the gate of the two-story townhouse that had been her home with Alex. The house looked majestic and cozy with a small garden out front, a symbol of success and marital bliss that people saw from the outside. But for Emily, tonight that building no longer felt like a home or a safe haven. The house now seemed like a giant cold, dark stage full of traps ready to swallow her whole. Emily paid the driver and stood for a moment in front of the main door, taking a deep breath to calm her still racing heart. She had to go in there, face the people who wanted to destroy her, and pretend she knew nothing. Emily opened the door to the house with her spare key. The atmosphere in the living room seemed quiet. The main lights had been dimmed, leaving a soft, warm glow. Alex appeared from the kitchen with a wide smile on his face, as if no crime had occurred just a few hours ago. The man greeted Emily with a warm hug, a gesture that normally made Emily feel loved, but now only sent shivers of disgust down her spine. Alex asked in soft tones if Emily felt calmer now that she had her purse back. Emily forced a slight smile onto her stiff lips. She nodded slowly and said she was just a little tired from the trip back and forth to the restaurant. Alex immediately led Emily to the living room sofa. With practiced ease, he picked up a glass of warm water that was already on the table next to the very vitamin bottle Emily had seen in the security footage. Alex took the bottle, shook one pill out into his palm, and offered it to Emily. The man said Emily should take her vitamins so her head wouldn't hurt tomorrow morning. He reminded Emily in a tone full of affection that her health was his top priority. Emily looked at the small pill in her palm. That tiny object was the weapon her husband was using to snatch away her sanity piece by piece. With a very quick and careful hand movement, Emily brought the glass to her lips. She put the pill in her mouth but didn't swallow it. She hid the pill under her tongue. Then she drank a lot of water to convince Alex she had swallowed the medication. Alex watched her attentively, making sure his wife really drank the wicked concoction. After seeing the empty glass, Alex smiled with satisfaction and stroked Emily's head, praising his obedient wife. Emily immediately excused herself to go to the master bedroom, using the excuse of wanting to rest soon. Upon reaching the bathroom inside the master bedroom, Emily immediately spit the pill into a tissue and flushed it down the toilet. She splashed her face with cold water, looking at her reflection in the mirror. Her face was pale, but her eyes radiated a strong determination. She could not be weak. Emily left the bathroom and lay down on the bed, pretending to close her eyes. Not long after, Alex entered the room, kissed Emily's forehead briefly, and whispered, "Good night." Alex left the room again, closing the door gently, leaving Emily alone in the darkness. Emily waited about 10 minutes until she was sure Alex wouldn't be back. She slowly got out of bed without making the slightest sound. Her thoughts flew to the strange occurrences she had experienced over the last month. Every night, as she began to fall asleep, she would often hear soft whispers calling her name, sounds of a baby crying, or murmurs from an unclear source. Those sounds were what often made her wake up, drenched in cold sweat and fear, causing Alex and Catherine to insist more and more that she was under a lot of stress or disturbed by supernatural things. Tonight, Emily was determined to find the source of that sound. She turned on her cell phone's flashlight and began to check every corner of the room. She checked under the bed, the closet, even the air vents. Nothing. Her gaze then fell on a large ornate painting hanging on the wall right across from her bed. The painting was a gift from Catherine 2 months ago. Emily approached the painting. Carefully, she lifted the heavy frame off the wall. Her wild suspicion was correct. Tucked behind the wooden frame, on the back was a small square black object with a very faint blinking red indicator light. It was a mini wireless speaker. The object was attached with strong adhesive and hidden very neatly. Emily felt her blood boil. It turned out the ghostly whispers that had tormented her were not a product of her sick mind, but voice recordings played periodically by her own husband through this device. Alex purposely turned this device on during Emily's sleeping hours to disrupt her rest patterns and create the illusion of auditory hallucinations. Emily photographed the device as evidence, then returned the painting to its original position so Alex wouldn't suspect anything. Emily's curiosity was still not satisfied. She heard faint voices from downstairs, tiptoeing and barefoot. Emily left the bedroom. She went down the stairs very carefully, avoiding the wooden parts that tended to creak. The house was dark, but there was a dim light coming from the family room. The conversation between Alex and Jessica became clearer as Emily got closer. Her heart pounded, afraid of being discovered, but she had to know what they were talking about. Emily hid behind the partition wall between the hallway and the main living area. Through a gap in a decorative cabinet, she could see Alex and Jessica sitting next to each other on the sofa. Their position was very close, much closer than the reasonable boundary between adopted siblings. Jessica's head was resting familiarly on Alex's shoulder while Alex's hand caressed the woman's hair. That scene made Emily want to vomit. This betrayal turned out to be much deeper and dirtier than she imagined. Not only were they conspiring for her fortune, but they were also having an affair behind Emily's back. Alex was heard laughing softly and saying that Emily had already taken tonight's dose. He said that tomorrow during the company meeting, the effect of the drug would reach its peak if Emily took the morning dose. Alex said with confidence that Emily would surely humiliate herself in front of the shareholders, making the reason to commit her to a mental health facility even stronger. Jessica chimed in with a sweet tone, asking when they could stop pretending to be adopted siblings. She confessed she was tired of having to pretend to be polite in front of Emily, whom she considered foolish and naive. Jessica said she couldn't wait to become the true lady of the house and send Emily to the asylum on the outskirts of the city. She had even already planned a vacation across Europe using Emily's company money for the next month as soon as Alex obtained the conservatorship over Emily's assets. Alex calmed Jessica, kissed the top of her head, and promised that everything would be over in less than 24 hours. Alex assured Jessica that Emily had no one else besides them because Emily's parents had passed away and Emily trusted them completely. Emily recorded that disgusting conversation using the voice recorder function on her cell phone. Her hands trembled, holding back the overflowing anger. Tears streamed down her cheeks. They were no longer tears of sadness, but tears of pure hatred. She now knew that not a single person in this house was on her side. She was alone in a den of thieves. However, that knowledge gave her a new strength. Emily turned off the recording, then slowly backed away to her room. She got into bed, pulled up the blanket, and stared at the dark ceiling. She would not sleep tonight. She would map out a counterattack plan. Tomorrow morning, the real war would begin. The morning sunlight pierced through the gaps in the bedroom curtains, waking Emily, who hadn't really slept at all. Her eyes felt heavy, but her mind was as sharp as a razor. She heard Alex's voice coming from the bathroom. It was time for Emily to begin her retaliation. Emily moaned softly as she held her head, pretending to have just woken up in a chaotic state. She sat on the edge of the bed, her body deliberately a little unsteady. Her face showed a confused expression and a vacant stare. Alex, seeing Emily wake up, immediately approached with a face full of pretense. He asked in a concerned but fake tone about Emily's condition. Emily answered in a hoarse voice, complaining that her head felt very heavy and she could still hear remnants of last night's whispers. Alex hid his cunning smile and nodded with concern. He said it was probably because Emily was too tired and suggested she rest at home until noon. Alex also reminded Emily not to forget to take the morning medicine he had already prepared on the nightstand. Emily nodded obediently. After Alex made sure Emily took her medicine, of course, with the trick of hiding it under her tongue again. Alex said goodbye to go take Catherine to the market and then run some errands. Alex said he would be back before lunch to prepare for the company meeting that afternoon. Emily felt relieved hearing the sound of Alex's car leaving the house's premises. As soon as the car was out of sight, Emily immediately jumped out of bed. The fig-ned dizziness vanished instantly. Emily quickly grabbed her cell phone and contacted James, her late father's trusted young lawyer who had helped her manage the company's legal affairs. Emily spoke quickly and firmly, asking James to come to her house right now through the back door so as not to be seen by neighbors or by Jessica, who might still be in her room. Fortunately, Jessica turned out to have left with Alex and Catherine. Perhaps they wanted to celebrate their victory early. The house was empty, giving Emily a golden opportunity. Not even half an hour later, James arrived with a worried face. Emily immediately took James to Alex's private office, which was always locked. Emily knew where Alex hid the spare key to that room inside a flower pot in the corner of the hallway. They managed to get in. The room was messy with work documents. Emily went straight to the small safe in the corner of the room. She remembered seeing Alex press a combination of numbers that was Catherine's birth date. Emily tried it and a click was heard. The safe door swung open. The contents of the safe made James gasp. Stored there were stacks of documents that were irrefutable proof of Alex's crimes. James found the draft of the conservatorship petition that Alex had prepared. The document stated that Emily was suffering from a severe mental disorder and was not legally fit. So all movable and immovable assets, including voting rights in the company, were to be handed over completely to Alex as her husband. There was also a false statement from a psychiatrist claiming that Emily was suffering from paranoid schizophrenia. In addition to the legal documents, Emily found bank records of suspicious bank transactions. James examined the documents carefully. He found evidence of fund transfers for fantastic amounts from the company's account to personal accounts in the names of Catherine and Jessica. The transfer descriptions were falsified as payments to suppliers or fictitious operating expenses. It turned out that all this time Alex had been slowly eroding the company's finances to fund the luxurious lifestyle of his mother and his lover. They bought jewelry, designer bags, and even paid the down payment on a luxury apartment using money that belonged to Emily. However, the most shocking discovery was at the bottom of the pile of papers. Emily found a passport in Jessica's name. When Emily opened it, she was stunned to see that Jessica's last name was not the same as Alex's family name, but another one. In the marital status column, it was clearly written divorced. And even crazier, Emily found an old photo hidden inside that passport. A photo of a civil wedding between Alex and Jessica dated 5 years ago, long before Alex married Emily. This fact hit Emily hard. Jessica was not an adopted sister, not a distant cousin, and not just a new lover. Jessica was Alex's wife, or ex-wife, from the past whom they had brought into her home under the guise of family. Alex married Emily solely to steal her fortune while his true love was still Jessica. Emily felt nauseous realizing how foolish she had been for 3 years, letting that woman live in her house and serving her like her own sister. James immediately photographed all the documents as evidence and put some crucial original documents into his briefcase. Suddenly, the sound of a car engine entering the yard was heard. Emily and James were startled. Alex was back much sooner than expected. The front door was heard opening, followed by Alex's heavy footsteps coming up the stairs. James's face turned pale. Couldn't leave through the front door without running into Alex. Emily quickly signaled for James to hide inside the large closet in the corner of the office, which was normally used to store Alex's old jackets. James slipped into the closet just seconds before the office door knob turned. Emily stood rigidly in the middle of the room trying to neutralize her facial expression. The door opened. Alex stood in the doorway, looking at Emily with suspicion. He asked with a sharp tone why Emily was in his office and how she had managed to get in if the door was locked. Emily's heart pounded as if it wanted to leap out of her chest. Cold sweat began to drench her back. Emily forced a smile. A smile she made look vacant and confused. She answered in a weak voice that she had heard whispering voices telling her to come in here to look for Alex. She said she felt very lonely and was afraid of being alone in the room. Emily played the role of a wife, beginning to lose her mind very convincingly. She approached Alex and hugged her husband's arm. Whimpering like a small child, asking for protection from the evil voices in her head. The suspicion in Alex's eyes slowly faded, replaced by a hideous satisfaction. He saw Emily, who looked like a mess and was dependent on him. As a sign that the medicine was working very effectively. Alex smirked, stroked Emily's hair, and said there was no one here. He then guided Emily out of the office. Unaware that in the closet behind him was a lawyer holding the evidence of his destruction. Alex said gently that Emily should get ready because at noon, Catherine would bring a special meal to make Emily strong for the afternoon meeting. Emily just nodded while inwardly preparing for the next act of this game. The sun was already high, radiating intense heat outside. However, the atmosphere inside Emily's house felt cold and terrifying, as if an invisible storm was swirling in the living room. After James's departure, he managed to slip out the back door with the briefcase full of evidence. Emily sat back down on the living room sofa. She regulated her breathing, trying to calm the storm in her chest that had not yet subsided. She knew the next act of this farce would begin soon, and she could not make the slightest mistake. Her enemies, the people closest to her, she now realized, possessed extraordinary acting skills, so Emily had to be a much better actress than them to win this battle. Exactly at 12 o'clock noon, the front gate was heard opening. A taxi pulled up in front of the house and out came Catherine. The woman got out carrying stacked lunch containers in her right hand and a large purse in her left. Her face was adorned with a wide smile that looked very sincere to anyone who didn't know the rot in her heart. Emily watched her mother-in-law's arrival from behind the window curtain with a cold gaze. She saw Catherine stop for a moment on the porch to greet the stray calico cat that Emily often fed. The cat meowed affectionately and rubbed its body against Catherine's legs. But Catherine just shooed the cat away with a gentle kick to get it out of her way. A look of disgust flashing across her face before she put on a sweet expression again as she grabbed the doorknob. Emily immediately returned to her position on the sofa, hugging a cushion tightly and putting on a listless face with a slightly lost look. The door opened and Catherine's shrill voice instantly filled the room. She greeted Emily with a term of endearment that made Emily's stomach churn. Catherine approached, placed her things on the table, and sat right next to Emily. She caressed Emily's cheek with her hands that felt rough but warm, asking how her favorite daughter-in-law was today. Emily replied in a weak voice, saying her head still felt heavy and her world seemed to be spinning, exactly as the script desired by her husband's family. Catherine nodded with concern, saying it was normal for Emily to feel that way because she was sick. Then she opened the lunch containers. The fragrant aroma of a rich and spicy beef stew instantly filled the room. It was a dish Emily loved. Previously, Emily would have been thrilled if Catherine had brought her this stew, thinking it was a form of a mother-in-law's affection. But today, that aroma smelled like death. Emily knew very well that this lunch was a crucial part of Alex and his family's plan. The shareholder meeting was to be held that afternoon, and they needed Emily in a chaotic, hallucinating, or at least unconscious state so Alex could take control of the meeting under the excuse of his wife's mental health. Catherine skillfully took a plate from the kitchen and served rice and a still warm stew. The gravy was thick. The meat looked tender. However, Emily was sure that hidden within that delicious gravy was a dose of a forbidden drug, much higher than the one in last night's pill. Catherine offered the plate to Emily, coaxing her to eat and have energy. She said she had cooked this specially since early morning, just for Emily, so Emily's mind could be calmer and she wouldn't hear strange voices anymore. Those sweet words sounded like deadly snake venom. Emily looked at the plate doubtfully. She had to find a way to get rid of that food without being discovered. She couldn't refuse outright because Catherine would surely force her. She might even feed her by force under the guise of caring for her. Emily thought quickly, then clutched her stomach set in pain. She told Catherine she felt nauseous if she had to eat in this stuffy living room. She asked for permission to eat on the back patio to get some fresh air so she wouldn't throw up. Catherine seemed to think for a moment, looking at Emily with a questioning gaze, but finally nodded. Catherine even offered to get cold water from the kitchen. Emily did not waste that golden opportunity. As soon as Catherine's back disappeared behind the kitchen wall, Emily rushed to the glass door that connected the living room to the back patio. There, the calico cat that Catherine had kicked away earlier was sitting,